Hiyo, that's the title of the 10th album by Raleigh, North Carolina's Chatham County Line, and the first without banjo player Chandler Holt. Although they're down to a trio, the band's sound has only gotten bigger, as Dave Wilson and John Teer can tell you now.
As you know from the stories that have been told over the past 4 years, our banjo player Chandler Holt retired from the road to spend more time with his family, and so we went in a new direction. Just didn't want to keep going down the same road. All my favorite musicians are people that changed during their careers, like a David Bowie, if you will, that just kept following their muse, you know? And we were super excited to add a drummer into the live show and use one on the album Strange Fascination. And then we really felt like we got the band together, and I wrote some tunes based around what we could do in a live show, and it really just worked. And having Rachel Moore co-produce Hiyo with us was a godsend, a luck engineered situation, and we are super excited with the way it turned out.
So what kind of discussions did you guys as a band have about this change of direction? Was it specifically, would you like sit around and hash it out, or you just kind of go in the studio and see what felt good? How did it come to pass?
I mean, we really played music for 2 decades based around the banjo,
right?
And what the banjo can do and bring to a song. He didn't play any other instruments in the show, so we didn't make any conscious decisions. It was just we wanted the music that we played on stage every night to reflect the music that we listened to driving down the highway in the van, and that was, music that was not bluegrass. And so when we went in the studio with Rachel, she just said, "What do you guys want to focus on?" We said we wanted to sound good and sound fun, and we just did it.
And so you meant
no rules.
So Rachel Moore, your producer. So how does producers can do anything or nothing? How does she fit in with the scheme of things?
John?
Well, we originally met Rachel. We were lucky enough to be cast to play on the Showtime series George and Tammy.
Right.
And while we were there doing the filming and everything, and that was the first time any of us have had the opportunity to do a show and be on a TV show or do that kind of entertainment, which was fascinating and just had the best time. And I remember seeing Rachel, because she was the music producer and just running around, the way she worked, the knowledge of the music, and how she helped the artist on the set to help them to get where they needed to be for the scene and everything. There's something about her. I remember watching her, and I told Dave, or I asked Dave, I said, "Man, what do you think about the possibility of having Rachel produce our next record? Because she's amazing." And watching her work, and we came to that conclusion. Let's see what she would say, because we both agreed how amazing she was. Just seeing her in the show, and we'd heard about what she had done in the past on her resume. So she was all about it. She loved what we were bringing.
Yeah, and to get to back to your question, she was really hands off as a producer. She would make tonal suggestions, and her thing was we would start working up a song, and she would run in the studio and say, "All right, how can we mess this sound up a little bit?" It would be a clean, for example, the last song on the record, Summerline, it'd be a clean piano. And, we were all into changing things up. So we ended up running the piano through a Leslie speaker in another room. I end up singing through an amplifier. And so she was just really into capturing those special tones that make a record something different and something special, and that was right in line with what we wanted.
Yeah, I was struck by the sound on Summerline. It's certainly not a bluegrass track.
City streets abandoned, all hope when landed, my old heart
It is not.
Right.
no.
So, so are you concerned about your
Yeah, I mean-
fans and how they're going to hear this and deal with it?
Not really.
No.
No, we've played live for 4 years with drums and super loud. With John plays through a mellotron pedal with his mandolin, and Greg plays pedal steel through all sorts of wacky effects. And the audiences have lapped it up ever since day one. They're right there with
Right.
us. So I think they're going to be right there with us for this
Right.
album.
I see you even use a drum machine on Heaven. That's kind of novel.
Yeah.
Reach for my wallet like anyone should. Bar keeps keeping, your money's no good. I look in the mirror, expect to sprout wings and fly. Better get out of here before I die.
Yeah, it was the weeks before going in the studio, and we don't have tons of money to go in a studio like Bon Jovi or someone and spend months
Right.
sitting around working, reimagining a song in different ways. And so in the weeks before going in the studio, I did that on my own time down here in my basement. As you can see, we're in the basement, and so I used a drum machine just to keep me on track. And there was one moment where the drum machine was just set just perfectly, and I picked up this Fender 6, which is like a 6-string bass style, guitar style instrument, and has flat wounds on it. And it was going through a delay pedal, and that just worked for that song Heaven more than anything we had ever tried on it, because we had tried it different ways. It was a country shuffle when we began.
Yeah.
And once we heard that, and I sent it to Rachel, she was in love with that version, and we knew that's the direction to go.
So it sounds like you had to keep open minds when you're making this record.
I mean, people's best work is kind of when they quit putting fences around what their ideas can be, and that's the way we felt.
Right. So did the songs come before the idea of how you wanted the sound to be, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, the songs came first, and we had been reimagining the Chatham County Line songbook to use a drummer and to use pedal steel. And in the live show, a song like Alone in New York from the Wildwood album, Greg now plays the banjo figure on pedal steel. Right. And so we were looking at our own songs as if we were covering them. And so that application worked perfectly for this record. I wrote the songs, but I was never married to how they were. They could always be changed. They could always be taken in a different light, slower, faster, minor, major, just whatever key, and then you sort of stumble in what's the best way to do it.
I see you have a track called Way Down Under that's out and about, and you've got somebody named Maya DeVitri, is that how it's pronounced, who's singing some harmonies on that?
Yeah, she's incredible. It's Way Down Yonder, and it's Maya DeVitri.
Maya, yep.
He was a friend of mine, till the words he said broke heart and mind. He was an old friend of mine. It ain't just sticks and stones, some words cut right to the bone. It ain't just sticks and stones.
She's amazing, and Rachel had actually mentioned her when we were while we were recording the songs. There were a couple songs in mind. We were like, it'd be really great to have a different voice texture on this and a female voice on it. And so there were a few different ideas for female vocalist. And I remember also she was in a band called the Stray Birds. I believe that was
Stray Birds was her band before she went solo. Yeah.
And they, if I'm not mistaken, too, were on Yep Rock, which is the label that we are putting this record out on. Mm-hmm. And we met them years ago, and it maybe at the Merle Fest Festival here in North Carolina, maybe a few other festivals that we just crossed paths, and kind of befriended them and really liked what they were doing and loved her. I remember the first time we were driving around and we heard her voice come out of the speakers, and we're like, wow, who is that?
Yeah,
That's
it's got a great voice.
really distinct and such a cool voice. So I think it came around just a lot of different names, and we set on that. And of course, Rachel knew Maya, so we reached out, and she was quick on the draw to want to help us out.
And Maya's real busy. She had one day free in the next 6 months where she could do this, and she jumped on it. And we love her for that.
All right, lucky you got her in there. So she's on 2 tracks, right?
Tight window.
Also on Stone.
Right.
Yeah, she's
That's
on
right.
Stone as well. Yep.
Yeah.
And I see you got one cover, She's Got You, that Hank Cochran, Patsy Cline thing. Why did you choose to cover that one?
I got your picture you gave to me, and it's signed with love like it used to be. Only thing different, only thing new. I got your picture, she's got you.
I'd been doing it solo in some solo shows with some other guys, and I just love the way it felt. And as we recorded it, if you know, Hank Cochran wrote it as He's Got You,
Right.
and then Patsy did it as She's Got You. I loved the ambiguity of doing it as She's Got You in a male voice.
Right, I was wondering about that.
It just opens this. Yeah, the song is open for whatever interpretation that you can imagine. Is it about a friend? Is it? It's open for any sex? Is it? And so I really love that in the end result, that you don't know what I'm singing about, and so it's up to the listener, which every song is.
Right. And one other one, a couple of them, I wanted to touch on Lone Ranger and BSR, which are kind of right in the center of the record. So do you have anything that you can enlighten us about either one of those tunes?
Well, I think with BSR, there was, there was a moment when we had gone through the tune, and of course Dave penned all these tunes, and when he brought that to the table, there was just this really swampy sort of mood and vibe that it was producing. So we tried to achieve that in the studio, and I feel like a lot of times with that one, it feels like your feet are you're walking through this swamp and the mud is real thick, and you're trying to just get your feet out of the mud and walk through and trudge through that stuff. So that was kind of the approach to the tune by doing that. Greg, it's really interesting. At the very top of the piece, there's almost sounds like a feedback sort of sound, which is just Greg on the pedal steel, where he was kind of bending the bar and had this distorted sort of effect that gave a really cool texture and emotion to start the tune. So I love that one, and I think Dave's coming back. He can fill you in on Lone Ranger and where he came up with the lyrics and the vibe for that one.
Sorry, we have a pot of beans on the stove.
Of course you do.
Upstairs, and so I had to go check on those beans.
Don't want to mess up with the beans.
Lone Ranger was I had listened to I think Tyler Childers has a great self-love song on one of his records that's really just hilarious.
Yeah.
And I just love the idea of humor and sort of sideline sexual innuendo in song, and Candyman, there's old blues songs that have that.
Are you familiar with Jackson Brown's Rosie?
Oh yeah, exactly. Rosie was another just stellar inspiration.
You're on the right track.
She wanted me to be the Lone Ranger one night in her bedroom. As a boy I lived for television on Saturdays, cartoons, cowboys showing me the way. Still check under, getting into bed most nights. mistakes, but I was brought up right.
And so I don't really know what the song's about, but I love the idea of a woman asking you to be the Lone Ranger, and whatever that means, you just
Whatever
tell me.
that means. And Raleigh's kind of notorious for having a pretty good music scene. Is it still pumping away? Is it still happening?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah, it's always been this great melting pot of musicians. There's so much talent here. The talent pool is just it's just a wealth of talent, and we're friends with a lot of the musicians around the area. And the great thing too is the musicians. It's not just Raleigh, but 30 minutes down the road is Chapel Hill,
Right.
and then also 20 minutes from us is
Right.
Durham. And both of those towns are college towns that have just a great bands that come out of that. And there's always talk wherever we go. Somebody's asking us, "Oh, have you heard of such and such?" Or how come all the musicians? There's so much great music out of that little pocket right there. And
Right.
we're just so lucky to see it evolve from when we kind of got started in the late '90s
Right.
up till
Wasn't
now
it?
to really
Did
see
Chris
the
Stamey
evolution
have
of all
something
the
to do with
bands.
you guys getting?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Chris Stamey, Greg and I played in a band with Tiff
Oh, yeah.
Merritt, country songbird from North Carolina, and we were playing a going away party for Tiff's tour, and Chatham County Line was playing, and Chris Stamey was there and saw us, and he loved what we were doing. 4 guys, suits, single microphone.
Yeah.
Original tunes, and he just called the guys at Yep Rock and made that record deal happen, which is a beautiful thing. He's been
Thank you, Chris.
a great supporter through the years, and he's a rock and guitar player. He's still out
yeah.
there making records and working with Peter
Love that guy.
Holsapple and all his buddies. He's great.
Very good.
the
Well,
best.
I'll wrap things up here. Thank you for spending time with me, and good luck with the record release. And hopefully, you can make your way down here sometime.
Well, it's an honor, Marty. It's an honor to be on the 13th Floor podcast. And we really appreciate
we
you
appreciate it.
supporting
Thank you
not
very
only
much.
the little boys, little guys like us, but the big dogs too. But thanks, Marty.
All right.
Thank you, Marty.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you.